What more can a man who's already claimed to be the GOAT do in his career? The man who already has the scoring title, who took it from Kareem's hands and is fourth in all-time assists, and practically appears in every single top 10 list in the NBA. What more can he achieve? Before I get into all these theories, by the way, I just want to say subscribe, because 100% of you are not subscribed because I'm new to this channel. I just made it the other day, so subscribe guys for more content like this, and also follow me on Kick. I'm going to be streaming right now. Let's get into the video anyway. Yo, what's up guys? Today we're going to be talking about LeBron James and where does he go from here. You see we got the nice picture here in the back, some LeBron meat riding. And today we're going to be going through 3 different scenarios, going through one, which is the best case, where we're LeBron sexual, and we're going through Fantasyland. This is my fantasy story, and I'm going to get him off, and we're going to see how many records we can make him break in this Fantasyland, like some NBA 2K video. And then the second scenario is going to be a realistic one, where I actually believe he's going to go. And then the third one is going to be a bad case, because worst case is kind of like he just retires now, like, you know, so everything stays the same, so there's not really much to talk about with a worst case. Yeah, so in recent years LeBron has just been like, he hasn't really fallen off. He's still so athletic, his game still seems to improve in some ways, like he keeps on relying more on finesse now instead of a bit of athleticism, and he's still averaging about 30 points. Last year he had like 29, which is more than his career average even. And he somehow seems to get even more rebounds per game, which is incredible. But one of the most telling parts of this LeBron story is his total stats. So we've seen in recent years that his total stats have kind of dropped down as he plays less games, as he used to be the Iron Man kind of guy. He used to get about 70 to 80 games a season, every single season, maybe injured a little bit and he misses like 5-10 games, or just plays less minutes like in some of his Miami runs, because he didn't need to play 40 minutes a game. They just won before that. But nowadays there's more that he can't really, and he's even being put on a supposed minutes restriction nowadays, which is something that makes some of this actually a bit more interesting. So I'm just going to start talking about the best case scenario. So let's put ourselves into LeBron sexual's mind. Let's find the bronchitis or some Twitter users. Let's get into their psyche. So I'm thinking 25 plus years in the NBA. We're gonna smash that all-time record made by Vince Carter of 22 seasons in the NBA, and we're gonna say 25 plus. Not even just 25, more than 25. We're gonna see this guy in a wheelchair. He's gonna go into a retirement home after he retires. He's actually gonna be 60 years old by the time he gets out of the league. And so 25 plus years in the NBA, that's a record in itself. But what does that actually mean for his other stats, like assists? Let's talk about his assists, alright? Because he already has first place in all-time scoring. So, I mean, that's pretty nice. But what if he could get to number 2 all-time in assists with 5 plus seasons? He's currently averaging around 300 or so, a bit more than that, assists per season, with about 6 per game and 50-60 games played in a season. So that would be around quite a few thousand assists that he could get if he was playing for 5-6 years, which means that he could pass up Jason Kidd. Okay, I'm back. Oh my god, my headset is low battery. I got interrupted mid-sentence. I'll put that at the end of the video as like some blooper. But anyway, I was talking about LeBron potentially passing up Jason Kidd. But there's also another person who could take away number 2 all-time assists from him, which is Chris Paul, who's obviously still going with the Warriors right now, still actually averaging quite a few assists, even off the bench, with like fewer minutes per game, because he is just kind of a point guard. But in this Fantasyland scenario, we're going to say that Chris Paul doesn't quite surpass Jason Kidd, or he doesn't quite have enough assists that he can take away the number 2 spot from LeBron. So LeBron in this Fantasyland is now number 1 in scoring and number 2 in assists. Because by the way, I mean, John Stockton's record of 15k assists or whatever it is just unbreakable. Even if LeBron played for 30 years, he wouldn't break it. Like, and that's assuming there was no drop off, by the way. Anyway, talking about points, let's talk about exactly how many points he can get to. Okay, so we're talking about maybe 60 plus games this season, because I don't think even in the best case scenarios you can say 70, 80 plus in a season for like 25 years. So we're gonna say 60 or so for 5 years times 25 points per game or so. So he would get about 45,000 points. So already breaking the 40k barrier is quite historically significant. But 45,000, that's taking it to a whole new level. That's like Wilt Chamberlain in the 60s level, taking it from like 20 something k to 30 whatever k that he took it to. And yeah, I think that might actually be another unbreakable record. So that's his first unbreakable record that he sets. That would be like his John Stockton of assists, but in points. So moving on, I think we should maybe talk about his steals, because he is quite a good stealer. I think he's 9th full time right now. But if he averages 1 steal a game for 5 seasons for 60 games a season, that's about 300 steals, which would put him 5th full time with about 2,500 steals, like 20 or so behind Jordan. So in a best case, I think Jordan would actually be just barely surpassed, because LeBron maybe averages 1.1 or plays 65 games a season or plays 6 seasons. So we're going to say LeBron ends up at number 4 all-time steals, just above Jordan. Which is insane, by the way. Jordan is an insane stealer, but he just didn't have quite as many games played as LeBron, who is also a very good stealer. I mean, you don't get to number 9 all-time without being a good stealer. Even if you say longevity or whatever. So something that LeBron is actually very good at, but he maybe isn't as recognized for in terms of his all-time leading or like records, is his rebounding. Like, he's a pretty damn good rebounder, especially for a small forward. But the problem is, because the all-time rebounding is just so dominated by centers and power forwards like Tim Duncan, Dwight Howard, Kareem, Bill Russell being at the very, very apex, is basically impossible for a small forward unless you play so many games to crack like even the top 25. But in this scenario, I think LeBron is either like one of the first 1 or 2 small forwards to crack the top 25. I'm probably forgetting about a few, but in this scenario he cracks the top 25, because we're gonna say he averages about 7 to 8 rebounds a game for 60 games a season for 5 seasons plus, which is around 2,100, 2,400 rebounds total, which would put him about 12.8 or 12,800, sorry, or around 13,000, which passes Charles Barkley for 19th. Or if he gets to 13,000, I think he just barely passes Shaq for about 15th, which is crazy. We're talking about 25th. We're talking about top 25 for this guy. But in this best case scenario, in this fantasy land, he could maybe get 15th, beating even Shaq, a 7-foot Shaq, a paint beast. So one thing that we're not really going to be discussing too much is LeBron's blocking, because he's pretty good. He got like over 1,000 right over the course of his career, but this is another one that is just dominated by centers. But even more so, because for LeBron to even get close to that top 25 or even top 50, he would have to do some insane things. He would have to be on that 2016 finals last 5 minutes like multiple times a game. And I don't think that's gonna happen. Even in Fantasyland, I don't think he can even get like top 50 or anything that notable. But he can maybe get to 1.2k blocks. I don't know. We're not really gonna be discussing it because it's not really that notable. But one thing that is notable is games played. So the current record is about 1,620 or so by Robert Parrish. And in his estimates, so we're saying 60 times 5, so 60 games a season, 5 seasons. That would put him above 1,700 games played, breaking the record by about 100 over a guy that just like did not miss any games throughout his like entire career. And yeah, that's probably another record that wouldn't even be broken. I think I've seen some articles before saying that Robert Parrish's games played record is basically unbeatable. It's like how people thought Kareem's one was unbeatable because you'd have to get some guy that averages, I don't know, like 27 a game for 20 years or so, and he just barely misses any games. I mean, who would do that, right? But in this scenario, it gets broken again. the Iron Man comes through. So we're gonna move on to another thing which could actually be very versatile, like the assists, which actually I think will move around a bit. Because rebounds, the only person that could really come for LeBron is like Drummond, who's probably gonna be retired soon. Or if, I mean, Dwight Howard's already above him, so like no one can really come for his rebounding and pass him up, and then he goes like, oh, he goes to 20th. But you know what is versatile? 3-point field goals made. That's changing all the time. I mean, James Harden could just we don't know. He could even pass Steph if he goes long enough. I don't think so, but you know. Or like some of these young guys, they could have one of these Steph seasons where they make 400 in a season and they just go crazy. But we're gonna be talking about LeBron right here. So I'm thinking, from what I've been seeing of his career, I've been doing a bit of analysis. I've been seeing that he's getting a rough average around 130 per season, 3-point field goals made in the past few seasons, and that's even with a bit of a slump last season where he was like one of the lowest percentage scorers on 3-point field goals for like the first half. But he's just shooting it a lot more now, and since his game is more reliant on skill and finesse, and it will continue to be as he gets older, like even in the best case scenario, he's just not going to be driving as much really. So we're going to say that he gets around 150 3-pointers per season as he progresses more into doing it, which would put him for 5 seasons, that's about 750, and that would put him at 3,000 3-pointers made as someone that doesn't even have that good of a 3-point field goal percentage for the league, for like the top level, I guess. Like Ray Allen and Steph Curry, who are around that level, have 40-something%. LeBron's averaging like 35 or whatever. But 3,000 will put him at number 2 right now. But it's possible that someone like Klay Thompson, James Harden, might get over 3,000. And even if he somehow does that, it's not number 2. It's like number 3, number 4. I don't know though. So I'm gonna also talk about one of something I find very interesting, like a record that I think is actually like less talked about, and it's probably one of the most unbreakable records I've ever seen in all of sports, which is actually Carl Redacted free throws made record. Carl Redacted doesn't even have that good of a free throw shot percentage, but because he just took so many, like I don't think his attempts will ever be broken, by the way, but I think his free throws made might possibly. I think he took like 12 or something a game on average, which is insane. That's like Joel Embiid if he does that for his whole season and then plays 20 seasons, which how does that even happen? But let's talk about LeBron's fantasy land. So when LeBron is healthy in some seasons, in the recent seasons, he's made about 250 or so free throws in the past few seasons, like per season 250, and I don't think he'll drive to the rim or get as many free throws in his twilight years. But oh my god, I keep on getting interrupted, but it seems to be charging now anyway. So anyway, as I was saying, so I don't think he'll drive to the rim as much, but since we're in fantasy land, we're gonna say that he somehow just manages to heap up 250 or more free throws per season, but we're just gonna go with 250. So for 5 seasons, 250, that's 1,250 free throws total, which puts him at number 2 all time, just 400 away from Carl Redacted. That is an unbreakable record, to be honest with you. If LeBron with 25 seasons and a generous estimate can't even break it, when is it going to be broken? I mean, I get that LeBron isn't the best percentage free throw shooter, but I think he's even better than Carl Redacted's free throw percent. Like he took so many. How'd you take that many free throws in a game? That you do that. Anyway, let's talk about a LeBron record that's maybe even more unbreakable than his points. And this is actually going to be the final stat or like record that I'm going to go through, because there's probably some niche ones where LeBron can get like the oldest player to get 40 points, the oldest player to get 45 and 5, 2 blocks, 50% field goal, the oldest player to get 5 threes, 2 threes in a game, like, you know. But we're talking about all-time stuff that is actually well tracked and isn't just like some random skill thing like 20 feet out. The oldest player to take a shot from half court. I don't know. So we're gonna be talking about his most unbreakable total stat probably, which is his turnovers. Yeah. So somehow in this fancy land, there's no way he's not going to surpass 5k. I think he's literally going to surpass it within like the next week or two, to be honest with you. I think he's at like 4,980 something. So and he has 22 turnovers in 5 games this season already. So he's definitely going to surpass 5k, especially if we're saying 5 seasons of 60 games a season. But since we're in fancy land, we're going to say that somehow LeBron goes to 1 turnover a game. Or so, maybe 1.5. But I'm thinking if I'm a LeBron section, I'm saying he ends up at 5,500 turnovers. Which is still pretty unbreakable, even in this best case, if he does play that many years. I think one thing that will be different is the amount of years in each of these scenarios. So it's not going to be like, there's another one where he plays 25 years and then just has like 6,000 turnovers. That will probably be like the most amount of turnovers he'll have just because he plays so many seasons. I don't think there's any real chance of him actually playing 25 or more seasons. Like that is just too much of an insane number. He's breaking a record like for the amount of seasons played for like 3 years straight. Like 23rd season, 24th season, 25th season, he's breaking a record on each of them. Like what? So talking about realistic, like what could actually happen in the real world? I'm going to talk about what I actually think is going to happen. So I'm self-admittedly, you know, a bit of a self-report. I'm a bit of a LeBron fan. You know, I appreciate greatness. I'm not going to say he's the outright GOAT. I think I have him tied for the GOAT status with Jordan, just for what I value in basketball. And don't come at me for that. I can maybe debate on it, like, you know, I can talk about it online, and if someone comes into like my Kick chat, which I am streaming on right when this video releases probably, I'll debate you on it. But I do think he might play 23 seasons in the NBA. Now don't hate on me for that, but I think he's going to play with Ronnie, which is going to be his 22nd season. And then I think he might play one more. I'm not sure if Bryce, his other son, is actually eligible to play in his 23rd season, because I do know that they're making it so that high schoolers can actually come into the NBA now, like it was for LeBron and Kevin Garnett and Kobe when they came into the league. But I don't know if he plays with Bryce. I know they hinted at it in a recent commercial. I think his wife was like, "You got to play with your other son as well," or something like that. I didn't actually watch it, but I'm gonna say 23 seasons. Like, and that's me being a little bit like generous. I think maybe, you know, it could go out anyway, you know. But I'm gonna say, in terms of assists, I think he gets number 3 or number 4 all time. I'm leaning more towards 4, to be honest with you. I think he's really way too far away from Jason Kidd to surpass him. But the number 3 that I'm talking about is basically a scenario where Chris Paul just can't make it work anymore, and he's stuck at whatever, like 11,560 or something assists, which would mean that LeBron can just barely pass him up in that 23rd season, and then he like retires like 10 assists more than Chris Paul. I don't think that's going to happen. I think realistically that probably doesn't happen. That's why I'm saying just 3 or 4. But there's also a chance where he just does that. So, anyway. Now, a few of you might hate me for this, and you might say, well, you just said you were a big fan of LeBron, so how are you going to say this? But I think he actually is going to average around 20 to 18 points for his last few seasons. Maybe 22 for this season. I think he's averaging like 24 point something right now because he just had like a 30-point game. But I think with the minutes restriction, that hasn't really come into play because he's been playing like 40 minutes. He's going to average about 22 points this season, which would put him in about the low 40Ks for points. Still very nice to surpass that 10K point barrier, which hasn't been done since Wilt Chamberlain, I think. Passed up 30K in like the 60s, 70s. And yeah, not quite the 45K, but 40K, I mean, how can you hate it? So I'm thinking about 150 or so steals, so maybe 1 to 1.5 steals per game, which would put him roughly 6th all time on the steals all time list. And he doesn't even come close to 5th because there's just a big gap between 5th and 6th, which is why it's very impressive that he could even come 4th in this LeBron Fantasyland one. But he would just pass up Maurice Cheeks, my favorite player name in NBA history. Gotta love Cheeks. And I'm thinking maybe he gets about 1,000 or so more rebounds, which would put him just in the top 25, which would pass up Patrick Ewing for 25th all-time in rebounding, which is very impressive. Eventually he will be ousted from 25th, of course, because, you know, time goes on. But even just to be in that top 25 category is very impressive in itself for a small forward, even if he has that just most seasons and games played or whatever. But I'm actually thinking that he does that in about 100 or 150, like that kind of range. So maybe 120, maybe 130, whatever. But in that kind of range of games played, which means that he either passes up Dirk or just passes up Kareem on that kind of generous side of that estimate. And he wouldn't quite pass up Parrish in this realistic scenario. I don't think he does. I hope he proves me wrong, because I would love to see, you know, some generational stuff. And if he does some of these things in the fantasy land, I think he might be my GOAT, to be honest. I do actually value longevity, and if he did some of those things, I mean, I don't know what I can say to that. So I'm thinking with that minutes restriction and everything, he probably, even with his reliance on skill and finesse, he probably gets about 130 for the next 2 or 3 seasons. So I'm going to ballpark and say about 330, 320 or so 3-point field goals made, which means that he literally barely passes up Reggie Miller for 3-pointers. Like, Reggie Miller used to be like number 3 all the time before Steph Curry came in, but I think that would be about 5th or something right now. And yeah, I mean, very impressive from LeBron if he actually does that. As for free throws, let's talk about some free throws. I actually think he's going to end up in the same place all time that he will on the Fantasyland one. And that's not because I'm saying that he's just going to get like some insane whistle call all of a sudden, but because of the fact that the difference between Carl Redacted and Moses Malone is just insane. It's like 1,500 free throws. So I think LeBron might get like 500 free throws or so made in the next 2 or 3 seasons. But that would still put him at second all time, because you can't pass up Carl Redacted in free throws. He was a free throw merchant, I'm going to say it right now. And I still think LeBron gets around, maybe a bit fewer than 5,500 turnovers. He's averaging like 5 a game right now. I don't think he's going to continue to average 5 games on a minutes restriction, and you know, but that would, if he actually did play like 100 to 150 games, that would mean about 750. But we're going a little bit more conservative, so about 5,500 turnovers or so, I think is pretty fair. I think he'll probably end up making that record pretty unbreakable in the end. And I'm going to talk about a bad case now. So this is going to wrap it up, basically. Obviously, this is kind of pessimistic case scenario, but not quite the worst case, because worst case, he breaks his foot or something and he just has to retire. Because, I mean, that would be a pretty sad way to go out. But maybe this isn't even a sadder way to go out, this bad case, where he doesn't quite have the end that he wanted. So I'm thinking, even in a bad case, he probably has 22 seasons played. I don't think he retires here, because I think he definitely wants to play with Bronny. But in this bad case, I think he becomes very limited, and he becomes a bit of a role player in season 22. In this year, he's probably still going to be a starter, but maybe a bit less, and have a bit less of a role with the Lakers. But maybe next year, Austin Reeves, Max Christie, Rui Hachimura, they start to just become a bit better than him. I don't know. This is a bad case scenario. I don't think that's going to happen, but in this bad case scenario, he becomes a bit more of a role player. And that would also mean that he would be number 4 in assists, because he wouldn't move up that much. He would get maybe a few hundred. he averages around 15 points per game in his last season on a pretty big minutes restriction, maybe coming off the bench even, which he would still pass up 40k points, I think. So I think he'll have that almost no matter what, unless a freak accident happens, which I pray to God it doesn't, but I'm just saying I think he will probably pass 40k points regardless. I'm thinking he gets, in this bad case scenario, about 50 steals or so more. So maybe he gets like 0.5 or 0.8, 0.7 steals per game and plays about 70 games. But 50 steals would pass up Clyde Drexler for 8th place all time on steals. Not bad, you know, still top 10. Unless someone else passes him up from behind, I don't know. I should actually look into that. Well, anyway, I think he gets about 400 or so more rebounds. So in 70 games, he averages about 5 rebounds a game. And he would pass up number 30 place, Bill Bridges. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the most like hardcore NBA fan, so I don't really know who Bill Bridges is, but I'm guessing it's a center. But it's cool to be top 30 for LeBron. Maybe I gotta learn about Bill Bridges. Maybe I'm missing out. Tell me in the comments below if I'm missing out on some Bill Bridges highlights from the 70s or whatever. I don't know what era Bill Bridges is actually from. So as I've said before, probably about 70 more games played. So he actually passes up Carl Redacted. I keep on saying his name because, you know, he's kind of in a lot of the same realm for LeBron in some of these stats categories. Because, I mean, he also played for 20 years. And he is the number 3 all-time scorer. So I'm just going to have to redact his name because I don't really want to, you know. Well, anyway. So that would put him 6th all-time in games played, by passing up Carl Redacted in games played with 70 more games. Now in this bad case scenario, I'm gonna say his 3-point shot is broken, or maybe he gets into a slump, maybe not broken, or like it's a drought. So what happened last season at the start is gonna happen now, but even worse. So maybe he shoots like 26%, which means he has to shoot less threes, which means his percentage is a lot worse, which means that maybe he gets about 70 3-pointers made in the season. So about half the amount as I think he realistically would make in this scenario. Which for 2 seasons, or for 70 games, actually I think that would give him about 70 total 3-pointers. And he would go to number 7 all time, just passing up Vince Carter, I think. Yeah, so he'd just pass up Vince Carter for number 7 all time with 70 more free throws, or 3-points made. And as for free throws, I think in the worst or like this bad case scenario, he has a bad whistle, he drives way less, so maybe he just gets a few hundred free throws and stays just behind like Kobe and stays at number 4 all time for free throws made. So, and maybe he has even a bad percentage of making it, so I'm going to say about 200 free throws, and he doesn't quite pass up Kobe for free throws, which I think he will in reality. I think he's probably a pretty good lock for number 2 all time. I don't know if you can bet on that or whatever, but I would, yeah. And finally, to finish off this video, let's talk about the bad case. Is that he averages 5+ turnovers a game for 70 games, which would put him about 5,330 something turnovers, which is unbreakable. I think he will have that as an actual unbreakable record, and maybe his points. In this 40, I don't know if 40k is really unbreakable. I mean, people said that Kareem's one was unbreakable, and then he got passed up. And it wasn't even just LeBron as well, because Carl Redacted came very, very close. I think if Carl Redacted didn't fall off so hard in that final season, and maybe played like 2 more, he could have even just barely slipped through that record. But he is a free throw merchant, so I think like 10k of those points for free throws. But I don't know, maybe we'll see like Luka break that. But I think this turnover one might actually be in the same realm of unbreakable as that current one that he's gonna create in even this universe where he gets 40k points. Yeah, so yo guys, this is my first video in a while. I don't know if you can tell from editing or like effort or whatever, but I have made videos before, just not this kind. I'm not really new to the NBA. I've been into it for a few years. I'm just not like a hardcore fan. I'm a bit of a stats guy, as you can probably tell from this like hypothetical of LeBron. I love the game. I can't watch most of the games live because time zones and stuff, but I try to watch highlights and be involved in the discussion. Tell me in the comments below what you think I can improve on. Maybe shorter videos, maybe more concise, maybe more editing. I'm not going to put like my full 100% into this project today. Like, I've obviously done some research, I've obviously used some prior knowledge, I've obviously done a bit of editing, but if I really want to make that top level video, just tell me what I can improve on, because I'm basically looking for feedback right now. Also, I will be probably streaming maybe some games, maybe some NBA theorizing and discussion. Catch me on Kick. I'm going to put my link pinned comment. I think I'm going to make it the pinned comment. And yeah, hopefully this gets more than like 20 views. I don't know. I'll try hard with the thumbnail and stuff. But this is it. I'm on a whole new account. I'm not even using my old account where I had like 100 or so subscribers, where I used to upload on it when I was like a lot younger. Yeah, I'll see you guys around. Hope you have a nice day. Peace out. Ma.